Winter clothing systems. Hey, this is Mark with Mountain Venture, and today I'm going to show you what I use when I'm hiking and camping in the backcountry in the wintertime. So today's video is going to be in 3 sections. Number 1, I'll tell you what I'm going to wear when I'm hiking into camp. Number 2, I'll tell you what I wear when I'm at camp. And number 3, I'll show you what I wear when I'm sleeping. What I'm not going to cover is my winter hiking boots and my glove system. I think I'm going to cover that in a different video. So I live in Northern California, where I have the Sierra Nevadas as my backyard, and so the temperature ranges that I typically hike in the wintertime ranges from single digits all the way up to probably the low 40s during the day. So this is the clothing system that I use that works really well for me in that temperature range. So the clothing system that I use when I'm hiking into camp, I'll start with the top. On my base layer, I usually have a merino wool, very lightweight t-shirt, short sleeve, crew neck. The one I wear is by Icebreaker 200. And it's very comfortable, and if it's a little bit more cold during the day when I'm hiking, I'll also wear a long sleeve, lightweight merino wool quarter zip tee over that, also made by Icebreaker. For my bottoms, I will wear my KUIU attack pants. They have a great range for temperature when you're hiking. They have those hip vents on the side, and they are semi-water resistant. And if I'm hiking through the snow, I'll just put gaiters on, but they're very comfortable for hiking. Now here's an important hiking tip. When you are winter hiking, what you really want to do is regulate your temperature, your body temperature, because you want to try to keep your clothing as dry as possible. So here's 2 things that I do to help with that. Number 1, I go much slower, at a much slower pace than I normally would hike. I just really take my time. I take lots of breaks to keep my core temperature down. Number 2, I intend to cover far less ground than I would if I'm hiking during the spring or summer months. And so on a typical overnight, I'll at most hike 2 miles in, or 2 miles a day, as my projected mileage for that day. So I keep the mileage very low, so I give myself lots of time to get there so I don't overheat while I'm hiking in and end up showing it up at camp with lots of wet clothes as a result. Now when I get to camp, I want to check if my base layers are damp. And even if I've mitigated my speed and tried to regulate my temperature and all that to try to keep myself from getting overly wet, usually they're a little bit damp, so I'll peel off those layers, I'll hang them up so they can begin to dry. And what I'll do is I'll put in a little bit warmer layer shirt over that. In this case, it's a KUIU Peloton 200 weight shirt. It's a quarter zip tee, very comfortable against the skin. And I'll wear that while my base layers are drying. The next layer I'll put on is my Patagonia down sweater. And that's very warm for its weight, and it keeps me fairly comfortable when I'm doing less rigorous activity at camp. Now if there's any weather, I'll put on over that my KUIU Kugach rain shell, and that helps also block wind, which regulates temperature as well, keeps you warmer if there's a slight breeze. And I'll wear that rain jacket over any number of my layers as to protect from the elements, obviously, and wind. For my bottoms, when I get to camp, I will I'll take off my KUIU attack pants and I'll put on a lightweight to midweight thermal bottom. In this case, it's an REI Polypro bottom, and I'll put my attack pants back on over that, and while I'm at camp. As far as my socks go, when I'm hiking in the wintertime, I'll usually have a very lightweight pair of liner socks covered by a lightweight to midweight hiking sock. And that is usually great for my hike in, but when I get to camp, I'll take those off because invariably they'll be damp from sweat, and I'll put on a fresh, dry pair of liner socks, and then I'll follow that with an expedition weight or a very heavyweight wool sock to keep my feet warm. And I'll put I'll loosen up my boots so that I can get a little bit more air space in my boots so it can trap warm air, and my feet stay very warm even when I don't have a lot of activity. Now for my sleep system, I just wear the same layers that I've already described. I take my attack pants off because they can sometimes be a little damp or wet or dirty from hiking, and so I take those off, hang those up, and from my top I just peel maybe one or two layers off because I'm usually warmer when I first go to bed, and as the night wears on and my body temperature drops, I'll start putting those layers back on to keep warm, and so I don't change up very much for the time that I'm sleeping. Let me talk about headwear just for a minute. When I'm hiking in, I almost always wear some kind of ball cap to keep the sun or the rain off my face. And then when I get to camp, if it's cold, I'll switch that out for a beanie cap. But when it's time to go to bed, I want an additional layer beyond that. So I'll put on a balaclava and then follow that with my beanie cap, and I'll sleep in that all night, and it keeps me fairly warm. As always, thanks for watching. And hit like if this video was helpful to you. Make sure you comment below if you'd like to chime in about layering systems that have worked for you during the wintertime. Hit subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And as always, we'll see you again sometime soon out there on the trail.